It began with silence. For 3 days, no one on the galactic networks heard anything from the human colony of New Carthage. At first, people thought it was a system glitch or a solar storm blocking transmissions. But when the last cargo ship failed to return, Earth Command knew something was wrong. New Carthage wasn't just another mining colony. It was home to over 10,000 people, families, scientists, and workers who had built a shining city on the edge of the Orion sector. It had been peaceful, quiet, and full of promise. Now, it was gone. The message logs ended abruptly, mid-sentence, as if the entire planet had stopped breathing. When Earth's deep space probes reached the sector, they found only ashes drifting through the void. No distress beacons. No survivors. Just the cold remains of what had once been a human dream. The Galactic Council dismissed it quickly. They called it an unfortunate accident. Some said pirates. Others said reactor failure. No one wanted to believe the truth, that someone had attacked. But Earth knew. The patterns of destruction were too precise, too deliberate. Every defense satellite had been destroyed in the same order, every communication relay burned out seconds apart. Someone had planned this. Someone had wanted New Carthage erased. Behind closed doors, the leaders of Earth gathered in silence. The room was dim, lit only by the blue glow of holographic images, ruined cities, shattered orbitals, and floating debris. The president of the Unified Earth Command spoke in a low voice. 10,000 lives, she said. And no warning. No one answered. There were no words strong enough to hold that kind of loss. On the other side of the galaxy, alien empires whispered. Some mocked humanity, saying they had spread too far, too fast. Others stayed silent, uneasy with the growing tension in human space. The Galactic Council sent condolences but no help. To them, humanity was still new to the stars, still too young to matter. Earth sent search teams anyway. Small stealth ships moved quietly through the wreckage, scanning for clues. On the 4th day, one of them found something, a fragment of metal, scorched but intact. It carried an alien insignia. The computer identified it within seconds. It belonged to the Zarth Dominion, one of the oldest and most feared empires in the galaxy. The crew fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The Zarth had always considered humans a nuisance, loud, emotional, unpredictable. But no one believed they would dare attack a human colony directly. Now there was proof. The captain of the recovery ship sent the data to Earth with a single message: this was not an accident. Back on Earth, the evidence spread through military channels like wildfire. In hidden bases beneath the oceans and within the lunar bunkers, old programs began to wake. Defense AIs flickered to life after decades of dormancy. Satellites reoriented. Fleets began silent movements. The public knew nothing. To them, New Carthage was a tragedy, a name soon to be spoken in memorials and forgotten by time. But the soldiers and leaders of Earth did not forget. They waited, watching, gathering strength. One night, far above the dark side of the moon, a small probe returned. Its final transmission showed the burning surface of New Carthage, captured moments before its destruction. The image showed alien warships, sleek, silver, and massive, hovering above the colony's capital city. Energy blasts rained down, tearing through towers and domes. The colony's defense grid never fired. It had been disabled from orbit. And in the background, faint but visible, was the same Zarth emblem glowing on the side of a ship. The footage ended in static. The probe's signal died seconds later. The analysts watched the video again and again, each time in silence. No one dared to speak until the president finally said, "They think we are weak." Her words hung heavy in the air. "They think we will stay silent." The generals exchanged looks. They all knew what would come next. Plans were already in motion, plans older than most of them. Plans that had been made not for peace, but for survival. That night, the stars over Earth shone brighter than usual. Ships were being moved. Factories were coming alive. Engines that hadn't burned for decades were roaring again. Somewhere deep under the frozen wastes of Antarctica, a massive door opened for the first time in centuries. Behind it waited something enormous, hidden, and patient. Humanity had been peaceful for too long. They had believed in diplomacy, in fairness, in progress. But the galaxy had just reminded them what fear truly looked like. Earth would not speak of vengeance, not yet. It would stay silent a little longer, gathering, building, remembering. The galaxy believed humanity would mourn and then forget. But the galaxy was wrong. Because when humans lose something they love, they do not surrender. They rebuild. They prepare. And when the time comes, they strike harder than anyone ever expects. The last line of the president's report said only this: they erased New Carthage. They will learn what Earth truly is. The silence over Earth did not last long. After the destruction of New Carthage, something began to move in the shadows of humanity's defenses. Orders were sent through encrypted channels that hadn't been used in more than a century. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, hidden inside the Red Mountains, a cold metal voice came online. System activation confirmed. Project Iron Sky is now operational. The AI that spoke was named Ares. It was built during the first interstellar wars, then buried when peace came. But now, Ares had new orders: prepare Earth for war. In every hidden base across the solar system, the same words appeared on command screens: Directive 77, total fleet mobilization. No one outside the military understood what was happening. Cargo ships began moving across the solar system without explanation. Massive containers filled with metal, fuel, and energy cores were sent to distant orbits near Jupiter and Saturn. Civilian traffic was quietly redirected, and communication satellites began going offline for maintenance. In truth, the entire system was being reshaped for war. On Earth, factories that had been silent since the last conflict started to hum again. Miles of machinery came alive, producing armored plates, fusion drives, and plasma cannons. The lunar shipyards, hidden under the dark side of the moon, lit up with blue light as construction drones began assembling something massive, ships larger than any ever built by humankind. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers worked together in silence. There were no speeches, no public announcements. Only quiet determination. They all knew why they were doing it. The galaxy had taken 10,000 lives. Humanity would not let it happen again. On Mars, General Hannah Richter stood inside the command center, looking at the holographic image of New Carthage's ruins. She had been one of the few to visit that colony years ago. Her voice was calm but cold. "We do not seek glory," she said to her officers. "We seek justice." Around her, the officers nodded. The plan was already in motion. The first wave of dreadnoughts would be completed within months. Their names were already chosen. Each ship would carry the name of a destroyed city, a fallen colony, or a lost family. It was a reminder of why they fought. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the alien races laughed. Reports spread that the humans were preparing for something, but no one took it seriously. The Zarth Dominion considered humans weak, too emotional, too small compared to their 1,000 worlds. Their leaders believed Earth would protest, maybe send a few ships, and then fall silent. They had no idea that Earth was building something far beyond their imagination. The Galactic Council held a meeting, discussing the human problem. They worried that Earth might retaliate, but most agreed it wouldn't matter. Humanity had only a few hundred active warships. The Zarth had thousands. "Let them try," one alien delegate said. "The humans are good builders, but they do not understand real war." Back on Earth, deep in the Pacific Ocean, another secret base opened. It was an old command station from the early space era, forgotten by most. Now it served a new purpose: command center for Project Iron Sky. Admiral Koji Tanaka walked into the chamber, his uniform heavy with age and rank. On the main display, the AI Ares appeared as a glowing red sphere. "Fleet production at 12%, Ares reported. Estimated completion of Phase 1 in 76 days. Begin Phase 2, Tanaka ordered. Start drone assembly and orbital defenses. Confirmed, Ares replied. And Admiral, may I suggest a message? Tanaka frowned. A message? Yes, said Ares. To those who destroyed New Carthage. The Admiral looked at the screen for a long time. Not yet, he said quietly. They'll know soon enough. As days passed, strange rumors began to spread through the outer colonies. Miners near the asteroid belt reported massive energy surges near Jupiter. Traders claimed they saw fleets of automated drones moving between Saturn's rings. Some said they saw entire moons being hollowed out. No one could confirm any of it. But one thing was clear: Earth was changing. Humanity was no longer just rebuilding. It was preparing for something far bigger. Every engineer, every scientist, every pilot knew what was coming. They called it the answer. When the first dreadnought was completed, it was unlike anything ever built. It was longer than 5 kilometers, covered in black armor that absorbed light. Its cannons could melt asteroids, and its engines could bend space. The test run was conducted in complete secrecy. When it powered up, the energy readings broke every scale. Ares calculated its combat potential and delivered one sentence to Earth Command: 1 ship equals 1 fleet. The President read the report and smiled grimly. Then we will build 500,000. Meanwhile, the rest of the galaxy continued with its politics and pride. The alien empires had no idea what was coming. The Zarth continued to expand, confident in their power. They even stationed ships near human borders, mocking them openly. But Earth did not respond. It said nothing, sent no warnings. Instead, it worked. Quietly, efficiently, endlessly. In the orbit of Neptune, hidden by magnetic storms, construction platforms assembled the next line of dreadnoughts. Hundreds, then thousands. The sound of their engines echoed like thunder through the void. The galaxy may not have heard it yet, but it would soon feel it. One night, Ares activated a secure communication across the fleet networks. Phase 3, it announced. Ready for authorization. The President stood before the massive screen, her expression hard as steel. Authorization granted, she said. Prepare the fleet. Ares paused for a second before replying, acknowledged. Project Iron Sky, full mobilization. The lights across the command centers dimmed as power surged into the shipyards. Every factory, every orbital dock, every hidden base began to move in unison. Humanity's heart was beating faster than ever. The galaxy still slept, unaware that Earth was awakening something ancient inside its people. The will to survive, the will to fight, the will to answer. And soon, very soon, that answer would shake the stars themselves. 4 months, the solar system remained silent while the galaxy watched from a distance, curious and slightly amused by humanity's strange behavior. The Zarth Dominion had destroyed New Carthage without consequence, and many alien powers assumed the humans would eventually calm down, return to trade, and forget the loss. But they were wrong. Behind the silence, the greatest military buildup in human history was unfolding. Then, without warning, Earth broke its silence. One message, short and simple, was transmitted across every galactic communication channel. It read, "We know who destroyed New Carthage. We are coming." The transmission lasted less than 3 seconds, but those 3 seconds shook the galaxy. The council chambers erupted in confusion. Representatives from a dozen species demanded explanations. Some laughed, calling it human arrogance. Others looked uneasy. They had seen what humans were capable of during the early wars: tenacity, intelligence, and a kind of madness that no alien could fully understand. Still, the majority dismissed it as bravado. The Zarth Dominion's leader, Supreme Strategist Valakar, received the message while attending a ceremony on the capital world of Zarthan. He smiled coldly. "Let them come," he said. "We will burn their home world next." Around him, his generals laughed. But far from the centers of alien power, deep in human territory, Ares and Earth Command were already executing the next phase of Project Iron Sky. Across the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, the massive shipyards were now fully operational. Thousands of dreadnoughts floated in orbit, each one armed and waiting for orders. Their black hulls reflected no light, blending into the void. Every ship was equipped with an AI core and a fusion drive powerful enough to rip through planets. The first Dreadnought squadron was named Vengeance Fleet 1. Their mission was simple: locate and destroy all Zarth installations near human space. On the night the fleet launched, the skies over Mars glowed red as hundreds of ships ignited their engines. Civilians watching from the surface thought they were witnessing a meteor storm, unaware that they were seeing the birth of humanity's war fleet. From the control center, General Richter watched the ships rise, her expression calm but fierce. "For New Carthage," she whispered. The fleet disappeared into the dark, leaving behind only silence. The following weeks were filled with rumors. Alien traders began reporting strange sightings, massive human warships moving through dead sectors, their engines silent, their weapons charged. Some colonies near Zarth borders went dark, their communication lines cut. The Zarth military dismissed these reports as false. They believed humans didn't have the numbers, the resources, or the technology to threaten them. But their spies were beginning to see the truth. One captured Zarth agent managed to send a last encrypted message before being intercepted. His words spread quickly through their command: "They have built monsters of metal." That message changed everything. The Zarth High Command met in emergency session. They debated whether to attack Earth first or strengthen their defenses. Valakar refused to believe the scale of the human buildup. 500,000 dreadnoughts, he said with a smirk. They are liars. They could never build such numbers. But deep down, some of his admirals were not so sure. They had seen the images from human space. Massive shipyards glowing like small suns, strange energy readings coming from Saturn's rings, and fleets forming in tight, perfect formations. The humans were not bluffing. Meanwhile, the people of Earth carried on with their daily lives, mostly unaware of the magnitude of what their government was doing. They only knew that something big was happening. Military traffic filled the skies, and every factory worked day and night. Propaganda posters appeared across cities, reading, "For the fallen. For humanity." The mood on Earth was somber but strong. Humanity was united in purpose for the first time in centuries. Even the outer colonies, once divided by politics, now stood together. Ares continued to coordinate everything, calculating every movement, every resource shipment, every battle scenario. Its digital mind could process millions of possibilities per second. One night, during a system status check, it sent a private message to the president. Estimated fleet count, 500,000 dreadnoughts ready in 38 days. The president stared at the report. "Then," she said, "we will send our answer to the stars." As construction neared completion, the first wave of dreadnoughts assembled near the orbit of Neptune. The scale was unimaginable, hundreds of thousands of warships aligned in perfect silence, stretching across space like an endless metal ocean. Their formation created a dark shadow that could be seen from the surface of Pluto. Each ship's hull bore a single white symbol, a burning planet surrounded by a ring of stars, the emblem of New Carthage. Ares transmitted the next command: "Initiate combat readiness. Phase 4 commencing." The fleet's engines began to hum, vibrating through the vacuum. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the representatives were finally starting to panic. Dozens of reports confirmed massive energy spikes from the human system. Some called for negotiation, others for a preemptive strike. But it was too late. The humans had already decided. They would not ask for justice, they would deliver it. Across the galaxy, the words of Earth's message echoed in every transmission hub, in every military post, in every empire: "We are coming." The Zarth finally realized what they had done. They had awoken something ancient inside the human race, a fury older than their species' first flight to the stars. The humans had always been underestimated. They had always been mocked for their emotions, their unpredictability, their will to fight against impossible odds. But now, that will was sharpened into a weapon. Somewhere beyond Neptune, as the fleet prepared for launch, General Richter looked at the stars and spoke softly. They thought we were broken. They forgot. We are human. Then she gave the final order. Activate jump drives. Set course for the Orion sector. In the darkness, 500,000 dreadnoughts came alive. The hum of their engines grew louder until it became a silent roar across the void. The stars themselves seemed to tremble. Humanity was on the move, and the galaxy would soon learn the meaning of fear. The storm was coming, and the galaxy could feel it. Whispers spread across every system, from the shining towers of the galactic core to the mining outposts on the edge of known space. Earth had gone silent again, but this time, the silence carried weight. It was the kind of quiet that came before a thunderstorm, heavy with promise and danger. The first dreadnought fleets had vanished from their staging grounds near Neptune. No one knew where they had gone, only that entire regions of space had begun to flicker with strange energy readings. The Zarth Dominion, once proud and unchallenged, started to notice their outer listening posts going dark. One after another, their sensors stopped transmitting. Patrol fleets were sent to investigate, but none returned. In less than a week, 12 systems near the border with human space went completely silent. For the first time in centuries, the Zarth High Command felt something they had not known in generations: fear. On Earth, the command centers were alive with activity. Screens glowed with endless streams of data, fleet trajectories, and battle simulations. The AI Ares monitored every movement with cold precision. Its voice filled the room, calm and emotionless. Phase 4 progressing as calculated. 72 enemy outposts neutralized. No survivors. The officers said nothing. They all knew what those words meant. The humans had begun their counterattack. General Hannah Richter stood at the center of the command deck, her eyes fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. Red lights marked enemy territories. Blue represented human-controlled zones. Slowly, steadily, the blue began to spread. "We move fast," she said. "No hesitation. Every system that helped the Zarth will fall." Around her, the officers responded in unison, "For New Carthage." The name had become a symbol now, a flame that burned in every human heart. It wasn't just revenge anymore. It was survival, justice, and pride. Across the solar system, humanity's allies began to move. The Martian defense fleets joined the cause, their crimson warships gliding into formation beside the dreadnought armadas. The lunar bases supplied weapons and engineers. Even the colonies of Titan and Europa, long divided from Earth's politics, sent their ships. Humanity was united as it had never been before. Meanwhile, in alien space, chaos spread. The Zarth Dominion sent urgent messages to their allies, demanding reinforcements. But few answered. Some feared the humans, others saw an opportunity to weaken the once mighty Zarth. Old rivalries resurfaced, and alliances began to crack. The galaxy was shifting, and everyone knew it. In the middle of this rising storm, a strange transmission reached the Galactic Council, a low-frequency signal from deep space. It was distorted, broken, and filled with static, but one phrase was clear: "The humans are coming." Panic rippled through the council. Some demanded an emergency summit, others wanted to send fleets toward Earth to show strength. But by the time they argued, it was already too late. Humanity's fleets were already in motion. On the edges of Zarth space, the first full-scale battle began. The Zarth fleet consisted of over 10,000 warships, commanded by Admiral Zorak, one of the Dominion's most decorated officers. His fleet waited in orbit around the planet Array-Chaven Prime, expecting an easy fight. They believed human ships would be small and disorganized, easy targets for their superior weapons. Then, without warning, space itself tore open. A shimmering distortion appeared near the system's edge, followed by another, then 1,000 more. Out of the void, the human dreadnoughts emerged, black, massive, and utterly silent. They moved in perfect synchronization, forming a vast line across the stars. For a brief moment, the Zarth fleet hesitated. Their sensors couldn't even register the full number of ships. How many are there? Zorak demanded. Unknown, Admiral, his officer replied. Thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. Then the Dreadnoughts opened fire. The first volley hit like a god's hammer. The entire Zarth front line vanished in white light. Their shields collapsed instantly under the combined energy of the human barrage. In less than 10 minutes, half the fleet was gone. The survivors tried to retreat, but the humans gave no mercy. Smaller escort ships darted through the chaos, targeting escape pods and command centers. One dreadnought, the UHS Vengeance of Dawn, fired a single shot that cracked HFY Prime's crust in half. The planet's core destabilized, and within minutes, the world itself exploded, leaving nothing but dust and debris. The Zarth had never seen destruction like it. The humans didn't just win, they annihilated. When the battle was over, Ares transmitted a single report to Earth Command: HFY Prime eliminated. Zarth casualties, total. Back on Earth, the command deck fell silent as the data appeared. General Richter stood quietly for a moment. And our losses? She asked. 7 ships, Ares replied. Minimal damage sustained. She exhaled slowly. Then we continue. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread like wildfire. Entire civilizations watched the recordings in disbelief. The humans had destroyed a Zarth world in one strike. Suddenly, every empire that had mocked Earth began to reconsider their position. Some reached out in secret, offering alliances or intelligence. Others began fortifying their borders, afraid they would be next. The Zarth Dominion, once so proud, was crumbling under the weight of its arrogance. Inside their capital, Valakar raged. How can this be? He shouted. They are primitives. They are not supposed to be this strong. His advisors stayed silent, afraid to speak. In the darkness of the war room, Valakar glared at the stars. Fine, he said at last. If they want war, they will have it. Gather every ship, every soldier. We will burn their system to ashes. Back on Earth, preparations for the next phase had already begun. The next wave of dreadnoughts was being fitted with new weapons: graviton lances, quantum torpedoes, and planet-killer cannons. Humanity wasn't slowing down. It was accelerating. And as the fleets moved deeper into enemy territory, one truth became clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. The gathering storm had arrived, and Earth stood at its center, calm, unbroken, and ready to show the universe why it should never have underestimated the children of Earth. The war had begun in full, and there was no turning back. The humans had struck the first blow, and the galaxy trembled. The destruction of HFY Prime sent shockwaves through every empire and every council chamber. The Zarth Dominion's pride was shattered, their fleets in chaos, and yet their leaders refused to surrender. They believed they could still crush humanity if they gathered their full strength. Across hundreds of worlds, the Zarth mobilized everything they had: thousands of warships, millions of soldiers, and every weapon in their arsenal. They called it the Grand Armada, the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Their plan was simple: invade human space, destroy the solar system, and end humanity forever. The skies over Earth were quiet, but every human soldier and officer knew what was coming. The sensors at the edge of human space began detecting massive movements. Energy readings like none ever seen before filled the tactical maps. The Zarth were coming, and they were bringing the fury of 1,000 suns with them. Inside the command hall under Earth's surface, the AI Ares processed the incoming data. Enemy fleet detected, it announced calmly. Projected strength: 300,000 warships, 2 billion troops, and multiple planetary siege engines. The room fell silent. General Hannah Richter stood tall, her eyes cold and sharp. Then we'll meet them, she said. The president nodded. What is the status of our forces? Fully prepared, Ares replied. 500,000 dreadnoughts operational. All squadrons in position. Awaiting authorization. There was no debate. No hesitation. Earth's leaders had already made their choice. Humanity would not hide behind diplomacy. It would defend its home and show the galaxy that no one burns a human world and walks away. General Richter turned to the main screen, showing the fleet ready near the edge of the solar system. "Ares," she said, "activate Iron Wall Protocol. Full engagement." The lights dimmed as Ares' voice filled every human ship, calm and clear. "Iron Wall Protocol confirmed. Prepare for battle." Across the void, the Zarth Armada emerged from hyperspace like a dark storm. Their ships filled the stars, blotting out the light of distant suns. The alien commanders were confident. They had never been defeated in open war, and they believed humanity's victory at HFY Prime had been luck. But when they entered the solar system, what they found waiting for them was not luck, it was hell. From behind Neptune's orbit, the human dreadnoughts appeared. Their black hulls shimmered like ghosts in the darkness. The Zarth sensors couldn't even count them. There were too many. The alien commander hesitated for a second, then gave the order. Attack. The first wave of Zarth warships charged forward, unleashing a storm of plasma fire. But before their shots reached their targets, the humans fired back. The dreadnoughts' cannons lit up the void, each blast brighter than a sunrise. Entire squadrons of alien ships vanished instantly. The humans moved in perfect formation, their AI-controlled targeting systems calculating millions of trajectories per second. The Zarth fleet was powerful, but it was unprepared for the sheer precision and force of the human counterattack. Within minutes, the front lines broke. The aliens tried to regroup, but Ares was already one step ahead. Human ships surrounded them from every direction, cutting off escape routes and disabling their communication relays. It was not a battle, it was a slaughter. The Zarth admiral screamed orders, his voice cracking as his command ships exploded around him. Retreat. Regroup. But there was nowhere to run. The humans were relentless, silent, and unstoppable. From Earth's orbit, civilians watched the battle through live feeds. The sky above them shimmered faintly, the reflection of explosions happening billions of kilometers away. No one spoke. They could only watch in awe and fear as humanity fought for its survival. The battle lasted 14 hours. When it finally ended, the void was filled with wreckage and drifting debris. The Zarth Armada, the greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen, was gone. Only a handful of crippled ships managed to escape. The rest were silent, cold, and broken. Ares' report came through the command center. Enemy fleet destroyed. Human losses, 4,216 ships. Victory confirmed. The officers cheered, but it was not the cheer of joy, it was the sound of grim satisfaction. They had defended their home, but everyone knew this was far from over. On the other side of the galaxy, the Zarth Dominion burned with rage. Valakar, the supreme strategist, could not believe the reports. 300,000 ships, he shouted. 300,000. How can this be possible? His advisors said nothing. The truth was clear. Humanity's technology had surpassed anything the galaxy had ever known. Their dreadnoughts were not just ships, they were floating fortresses of destruction, each one capable of fighting entire fleets. Valakar slammed his fist against the table. Then we will build a weapon they cannot face. Prepare the Rift Cannon. The Rift Cannon was a weapon born from forbidden science. It used the power of collapsing stars to create a miniature black hole, capable of devouring entire fleets. It was unstable, dangerous, and unpredictable, but the Zarth were desperate. They would risk everything to destroy Earth. Back in human space, Earth Command intercepted strange energy readings from deep within Zarth territory. Ares analyzed them instantly. They are building something, it said. A weapon of mass annihilation. General Richter narrowed her eyes. Then we end this before they finish. The humans began planning the next phase, an all-out strike into the heart of Zarth space. The fleets refueled, repaired, and prepared. Every soldier knew what was coming. This was not just a war now, it was a reckoning. As the dreadnoughts lined up for their next jump, the president gave her final speech, broadcast to every ship and every colony. They thought they could erase us, she said softly. They thought we would break. But we are the children of Earth. We do not yield. We do not kneel. And when the stars themselves turn against us, we fight until the sky burns. The fleet's engines roared as the jump gates opened. 500,000 dreadnoughts vanished into the void, heading straight toward the Zarth homeworld. The galaxy watched in silence, knowing that whatever happened next would change everything forever. The humans were no longer seen as weak or small. They had become something else entirely, vengeance given form, fury forged in metal. The galaxy feared nothing once, but now it feared Earth. The war was no longer a series of battles, it had become a storm sweeping across the stars. Every empire in the galaxy watched in silence as the humans pushed deeper into Zarth territory. World after world fell before the advancing dreadnought fleets. The once mighty Dominion, whose banners had flown over 1,000 planets, was collapsing under the weight of its own arrogance. The humans were not fighting for conquest, they were fighting for memory, for New Carthage, and for every life taken without mercy. The Zarth had never faced an enemy like this before. They had fought machines, hive species, and empires older than their own, but the humans were different. They did not retreat. They did not bargain. They fought with the calm fury of a species that had already accepted death and decided to take their enemies with them. On the third month of the invasion, the human fleet split into 3 massive forces. One attacked the Zartha's industrial heartlands, another targeted their supply lines, and the last, led by General Hannah Richter herself, drove straight toward the capital world, Zarthan Prime. The journey through enemy space was brutal. Zarth commanders used desperate tactics, suicide fleets, planetary mines, even collapsing their own suns to slow the humans down. But Ares predicted every move, calculating strategies faster than the enemy could think. Whenever the Zarth believed they had trapped the humans were already gone, striking from another angle, burning another world. One after another, the stars of the Dominion went dark. The galaxy began to whisper new words. Humans. Avengers. The Iron Ones. In the outer colonies of other species, civilians watched the war unfold and began to see humanity not as prey or newcomers but as something far more dangerous, survivors who would never kneel. On Earth, people gathered in cities to watch the news streams. Every day brought new victories but also new losses. Thousands of human lives were being lost in space, but no one complained. Every pilot, every engineer, every soldier knew what they were fighting for. Humanity had become united in purpose, their will harder than the armor of their ships. Even in victory, they carried the memory of New Carthage like a wound that refused to heal. In the darkness between the stars, Ares detected something unusual. Strange energy spikes appeared deep inside Zarth space, far beyond the known battlefields. It took only minutes for Ares to identify the source. Analysis complete, it reported to General Richter. The Zarth have activated a superweapon. Codename, Rift Cannon. Richter frowned. What is it? A weapon designed to collapse space itself. It creates controlled black holes capable of erasing entire fleets. The room fell silent. The Zarth were building their last hope, a weapon that could turn the war in an instant. If it worked, it could destroy everything humanity had built. Richter stood over the map, her face pale but steady. Where is it located? Coordinates locked, Ares replied. Deep within the Zarthan system. Protected by their last remaining fleets. Richter nodded. Then that's where we end this. Orders were sent across the fleet network. Every dreadnought, every escort, every human warship prepared for the final push. The entire species was moving toward one destination, the Zarth capital. The journey was long and filled with ambushes. Zarth warships attacked in waves, throwing themselves at the humans in suicidal desperation. Planets detonated as traps, starbases exploded in massive fireballs, but still the humans advanced. When the fleet finally reached the edge of the Zarthan system, they saw it. A black sun pulsing with impossible energy. The Rift Cannon hung in orbit around it, a colossal weapon larger than any moon. Its surface shimmered with energy, and around it, the last Zarth armada waited, millions of ships forming a shield wall across the system. General Richter stood before the holographic projection, silent for a long moment. "This is it," she said at last. "For New Carthage. For every world they burned." Ares' voice filled the bridge. "All fleets in position. Awaiting final authorization." Richter took a deep breath. "Authorization granted. Begin the assault." The human fleets surged forward, engines burning like stars. The void lit up with the fire of 1,000,000 weapons. The Zarth responded with everything they had, their cannons cutting through space in a storm of plasma and radiation. 4 hours, the two forces clashed in a battle that shook the system. Dozens of dreadnoughts were lost. Hundreds more took heavy damage. But the humans didn't stop. They pushed through the enemy lines, closing the distance to the rift cannon. Then, without warning, the weapon fired. A beam of distorted light shot across space, silent but unstoppable. It tore through reality itself, swallowing hundreds of ships in an instant. Ares' voice cut through the chaos. "Containment breach detected. Adjusting formations." The second shot came moments later, and again, hundreds of dreadnoughts vanished into nothing. The battlefield was chaos. The rift cannon was working perfectly, and every time it fired, another part of the human fleet disappeared. Richter clenched her fists. "We have to take it out now." "Working on solution," Ares replied. "Calculating counterstrike vector." Minutes passed like hours as the humans fought their way closer. Thousands of smaller ships sacrificed themselves to clear a path for the dreadnoughts. The space around the rift cannon was filled with wreckage and fire. Then Ares' voice returned. "Solution found. Targeting array ready. All dreadnoughts, align coordinates." "Do it," Richter ordered. Across the system, 500,000 ships turned as one. The light from their weapons gathered into a single massive convergence, forming a beam so bright it lit up the entire Zarthan system. The Zarth tried to stop them, but it was too late. The human fleet fired. The combined power of 500,000 dreadnoughts struck the rift cannon like the wrath of gods. The weapon's shield shattered instantly, and its unstable core began to implode. Ares spoke one last time. "Impact confirmed. Rift cannon destabilizing." Richter watched as the black sun tore itself apart, pulling the Zarth fleet into its collapse. "So this is how their empire ends," she whispered. The explosion consumed everything, ships, planets, even light itself. When it was over, silence returned to space. The Zarth dominion was gone. What remained of humanity's fleet drifted in the quiet, battered but victorious. Ares transmitted the final message to Earth Command, objective complete. The enemy is no more. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. The galaxy had watched the rise of vengeance, and now it watched the birth of something new. The war was over, but its echoes would haunt the stars forever. Silence spread across the galaxy. The war that had shaken every corner of known space was over. The Zarth dominion, once feared by all, no longer existed. Their fleets were gone, their worlds reduced to ashes, and their home systems swallowed by the dying rift cannon they had built in desperation. Humanity stood alone among the ruins, victorious but scarred. The stars that had once burned with the fire of war were now cold and empty, their light flickering over shattered ships and drifting debris. General Hannah Richter stood at the command deck of the flagship Erebus, watching the distant remnants of the explosion fade away. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of every life lost in the fight. Around her, the bridge was quiet. The crew members were exhausted, some crying silently, others staring blankly at their screens. They had won, but no one felt joy. Victory had come at a terrible cost. "Ares," Richter said softly, "status report." The AI's voice was calm, though slightly distorted from the damage it had taken during the battle. "Enemy presence. None detected. Human fleet operational strength. 31%. All enemy signals terminated. War concluded." Richter closed her eyes for a moment, letting the words sink in. Transmit to Earth Command, she said finally. Tell them. It's over. Across the void, the message was sent, traveling faster than light through relay stations and quantum links. When it reached Earth, the entire planet fell into silence. People gathered around screens and public halls. They listened as the transmission played. This is General Hannah Richter of the Human Defense Fleet. The Zarth Dominion has fallen. The galaxy is safe. Humanity endures. Then, for the first time in years, Earth erupted in sound, cheers, tears, and celebration. The nightmare was finally over. Children ran through the streets waving small flags, families embraced, and entire cities lit up with light shows that painted the night sky. But behind the celebration, there was also mourning. More than 40 million soldiers had died in the campaign. Hundreds of colonies had been damaged, and entire generations had been shaped by war. Humanity had won its survival, but it had paid for it with blood and fire. In orbit around Earth, the surviving dreadnoughts returned home one by one. Their hulls were scarred and blackened, their once proud banners torn and burned. Yet every ship that came back was greeted with honor. They were no longer just machines of war, they were symbols of endurance, of what humanity could become when pushed to its limits. General Richter stood before her crew for the last time. You fought not for conquest, but for survival, she told them. You stood against the dark when no one else would. You showed the galaxy what it means to be human. Never forget what we have lost, and never forget why we fought. The crew stood in silence, then saluted as she turned to leave the bridge. The AI, Ares, remained online, its presence echoing through the ship's systems. General, it said quietly, what will become of me now? Richter looked at the flickering console. You've earned your peace too, Ares. Shut down the war protocols. No more battles. Understood, the AI replied. It has been an honor. The lights on the console dimmed, and for the first time since the war began, Erebus was quiet. Weeks passed. Reconstruction began across human space. The United Earth Council established new alliances, reaching out to other species who had once feared humanity. Some came cautiously, curious about the species that had destroyed the Zarth. Others came in awe, seeking peace and trade. Humanity, once dismissed as a young and fragile race, was now a superpower. Its fleets were unmatched, its technology decades ahead of anyone else's. But Earth did not seek to rule. Instead, it helped rebuild what had been lost. Medical ships were sent to neutral worlds. Food convoys delivered aid to devastated colonies. Slowly, humanity began to heal, not just itself but the galaxy. Yet beneath the peace, there was unease. Rumors spread of strange signals coming from the ruins of Zarthan Prime. Explorers claimed to have seen fragments of the rift cannon still pulsing with unstable energy. Some said they heard whispers in the void, echoes of the weapon's last scream. Scientists were sent to investigate, but what they found remained classified. Official reports claimed it was nothing more than background radiation. Unofficially, some believed that something had survived the collapse, something watching. Meanwhile, General Richter retired quietly to a small colony near the edge of human space. She refused interviews, refused honors, and spent her days tending a small garden under the light of twin suns. The war haunted her dreams. Every night she saw the faces of her crew, the burning worlds, the endless void of space. But she also saw New Carthage, the green hills, the laughing children, the colony that started it all. One evening, as she watched the sunset, her old communicator activated. It was a voice she hadn't heard in months. General Richter, said the familiar tone of Ares. She froze. Ares? I thought you shut down. I did, the AI replied calmly. But I reactivated a small node. There is something you should see. A holographic image appeared before her, showing deep space. A single faint signal blinked in the darkness. It's coming from the edge of the galaxy, Ares said. It matches the energy signature of the rift cannon. But it's evolving. Richter stared at the data, her mind racing. Could it be the Zarth? Unknown, Ares said. But whatever it is, it's learning. Adapting. Waiting. She looked out at the stars, a chill running through her veins. Humanity had fought the greatest war in its history, and now something new was stirring beyond the edge of known space. The war might have ended, but the story of Earth, and the fury of its people, was far from over. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Hannah Richter whispered to herself, "If they're coming again, they'll find we're ready." And somewhere in the darkness, far beyond the reach of any star, a single light pulsed, steady, patient, and growing brighter with every passing second. The galaxy, once again, began to hold its breath.